I'm Dr. Pam Johnston. I teach in the English department. I also teach women's studies here at TLU. I've been at Texas Lutheran for 10 years, and I wrote the article on, it's called The Basic Thing, and it refers to general education, liberal arts, and liberal education. I think I received an email from you, and we talked a little bit about an article that I had recommended for our freshmen sometime before that. An article about the use of a liberal education, but we wanted something that was a little more specific to TLU and to TLU students. And so I started thinking about that article. I actually started with the concept of the Big Shaggy, which comes up in my article. It was an essay by David Brooks that I had read not too long before that, actually, and I was really interested in that idea. And I wanted to make use of it in some way, and so I was very happy that I was able to make use of it in that essay. I didn't know exactly where to start with this essay. I knew I wanted to include some elements from an article by Bart Giamatti that we had used before and in the freshman experience course. I wanted to include David Brooks and the Big Shaggy. I wasn't exactly sure where to start, but almost always for me, when I'm writing something, it starts with a story of some sort and branches out from there. And I don't remember why, but for whatever reason, I started thinking about this story. I've told the story many, many times about my son when he was really little, would ask me this weird question. He would say, what's the basic thing about ducks? Or what's the basic thing about the Flintstones? Or what's the basic thing about a cheeseburger? And if you gave him an answer, you'd say, well, the basic thing about a cheeseburger is, the burger patty, the hamburger. He'd say, no, that's just hamburger. And so then you'd have to go on and try to figure out really what is the basic thing. And so that seemed like a really good metaphor for what we're talking about with liberal arts education. And the idea of many things coming together to be part of the whole, and how the whole suffers if it doesn't have all the parts. And one of those crucial parts, of course, then becomes the Big Shaggy as well. So once I had the story in place, then I was good to go. But that for me, it always kind of starts with a story, and that's the seed from which everything else grows. Well, the first thing was that I'm writing about liberal arts education and about general education specifically. And I think one of the challenges our students face is seeing the relevance of that. They really want to know why it's necessary to take these classes. And that's a perfectly valid question. They come here and we tell them you have to take these things. And it's reasonable for them to ask why they have to do that. So I wanted to try to answer that question, and I wanted to try to answer that question as fully and honestly as I could. And I think it's answered in a way for TLU students that it might not be answered for students at other universities. Our students have a lot of autonomy in terms of choosing the courses that are going to work for them and the courses that are going to be the best fit for them. And so when I was trying to put the article together, I was trying to keep that in mind as well, and to try to make that decision-making process play a really prominent role, because it's not just a question of taking these classes that you need to take. It's making the choice and figuring out why that's the choice I want to make, not because it's the easiest class, not
Right.
because or maybe not even because it's the most interesting one, but maybe because it's going to challenge me in a way I haven't been challenged before. Maybe because I have no idea what that class is, and maybe I should learn something about that. There's a whole bunch of different choices that students can make when they're designing that curriculum for themselves. And that was something I really wanted to talk about in my essay. Yeah, I remember that first year just being a really kind of scary time. My older sister and I are the only two people in our very large extended family to go to college, and we're very different people. So the only advice I had when I went to college was advice that I had received from her, which worked for her, but it very quickly became clear to me that it wasn't going to work for me, because we're different people and we were interested in different things, and the kinds of things that she thought were interesting and that had worked just weren't going to be fulfilling for me. And so I remember that first year or so of college being a really kind of scary time, because that was the first time I was completely on my own. I went away to college. I was about 6 hours from home, and I grew up in Idaho, so this was 6 hours through the mountains. It wasn't easy to go home. So I was on my own a lot and thinking a lot of things through. And I thought I knew what I wanted to major in, and then discovered very early on that I was wrong about that and had to figure out what else I might want to major in. But I very quickly figured out that I just really enjoyed learning about lots of different things. One of the best classes I took in my university career was a survey of world religions class that I just loved. I just loved because that allowed me and encouraged me to ask some questions that I had never been allowed to ask before, and it allowed me to see some connections and some differences, and to really sort of, ask myself what I thought about some things when I had always been told what to think before that. And that really kind of opened a door for me when I realized that any question was on the table. College became a whole lot more interesting once I had that little epiphany. I think I would just encourage students, both before and after reading my chapter, to not, like I said before, not consider anything off the table. Even if if you've never ever thought about taking a drawing class before, that doesn't mean you can't take one or that you shouldn't take one. If you've never ever taken a music class before, that doesn't mean that that's a bad idea. There are so many things that I would never have known that I was interested in had I not taken a class in that subject matter in college, and as part of my general education requirements. I think you have to let yourself explore, be brave enough to be scared once in a while, and know that you might learn something really interesting, and know that learning what you don't like and what you don't want to study is just as important as learning what you do. That both of those things are valuable pursuits.